How do you manage multiple FortiDDoS appliances using a central manager? Hi, my name is Hemant Jain. I'm VP of Product Engineering within the FortiDDoS group at Fortinet. Now, let me introduce you to this topic. Fortinet's main products, FortiGates, are managed centrally by FortiManager. Now, FortiManager does not manage FortiDDoS appliances. FortiDDoS is a network behavior analysis product where each appliance may see totally different traffic. So all policies on different appliances cannot be exactly same for an organization. FortiDDoS therefore has its own central manager architected for this special need. It is a VM-based software that can centrally manage multiple appliances and can report centrally via a single pane of glass. So the central management software runs on a variety of VM platforms and you can choose the one which is suitable to you. You can use Citrix Hypervisor, also called the Xen server, open source Xen, KVM, VMware, or Microsoft Hyper-V. Check the version of the software that FortiDDoS VM platform is tested before you start using it. Now, FortiDDoS Central Manager license comes in three varieties. First is the trial license. This is a full featured license that works for 15 days from installation. The second is a license that you can use to manage up to 10 FortiDDoS appliances with a single central manager. And the last one is an unlimited license that allows you to manage unlimited number of FortiDDoS appliances with a single central manager. Now, in terms of models which are supported by central manager, other than the 600B and 900B, all other platforms are supported by the central manager. So this gives you the capacity of up to 280 Gbps of increased mitigation with 2000E models. And in terms of throughput, you can manage appliances which range all the way from 3 Gbps to 70 Gbps. Now let's have a look at a typical central manager deployment. So in this diagram, we have two FortiDDoS 1200Bs which are in a master slave configuration, a single 1200B which is a standalone, and a 2000E appliance which is standalone, and another 2000E which is a standalone. All these appliances can be centrally managed using a VM-based central manager and can have policies which are centrally managed by this VM. Now, in terms of overlap in management, you have to understand some concepts here. First, the central manager has its own configuration which is specific to it. For example, its own IP, its own time, DNS, gateway, etc. And then there are configurations which are specific to device. For example, device's IP, its HA configuration, individual thresholds. Those are very specific to the device. And then there is a whole lot of centrally managed common configuration that is common to all devices and is managed by the central manager. This includes features such as being able to update devices of the same model at the same time, adding ACLs to all devices at the same time, etc. Similarly, in terms of reporting, there are central manager specific reports, for example, the event logs for central manager, and then there are appliance specific reports, for example, top attacks for a specific appliance or traffic to physical ports on a specific appliance. And then there is the overlap area, which you can centrally report, and that includes executive summary of attacks across all appliances in a single pane of glass. So that's how the overlap in reporting works. Now, in terms of how do you deploy Central Manager, you need to go through this process. The first step is install FortiD-CM on a virtual machine. The next would be to add one device to FortiD-DOS Central Manager. And this could be an existing FortiD-DOS appliance that you add on the FortiD-CM. And the third step is add FortiD-CM settings on the FortiD-DOS appliance. Once you have done that, you can retrieve configuration of a running FortiD-DOS appliance on the FortiD-DOS Central Manager. This gives you a way to retrieve all the existing configuration, which would be the overlapped configuration that you want on all other FortiD-DOS appliances at the Central Manager without actually typing all that configuration into the Central Manager. And once you have done that, both FortiD-DOS Central Manager and the FortiD-DOS appliance should be in sync. Given that, next, if you modify any configuration on the FortiD-DOS Central Manager, it will sync to all the appliances or to this first appliance that you have added. Next, you will add the next FortiD-DOS appliance and then do sync now to all, and that will synchronize the configuration to the two devices. And then you can centrally monitor. Once you have done this, you can keep repeating these steps to add more devices and synchronize all the common configuration across all the devices. Now let's understand how you add a new FortiD-DOS to a FortiD-DOS Central Manager. So for that, you need to know what is the device's serial number and its IP and a shared secret between the device and the Central Manager. Once you do that on the FortiD-CM, the device would be added to the Central Manager, but not yet operational. To make it operational, you need to add the FortiD-CM to the FortiD-DOS appliance as a second step. And on the FortiD-DOS appliance, you will need a host ID of the Central Manager, which you can retrieve from Central Manager's dashboard. And you will need to add the IP address of the FortiD-DOS Central Manager and the shared secret between the two devices. Once you do that, the registration status will show as registered. If it doesn't show registered, you may have to repeat these steps properly to ensure that the registration status is registered on both the devices. Let's understand some key concepts related to usage of the Central Manager. First, the administrative credentials as configured by FortiD-DOS Central Manager are enabled on all appliances, which means if you create a user with certain credentials, that user credential will be available on all appliances which are centrally managed by this CM. Next, in FortiD-DOS, you have a limit of 8 SPPs. So if you are using, for example, 10 devices using a central manager, then you are not getting 80 SPPs, but you are still limited to 8 SPPs. But the key concept to understand here is that the subnets which are faced by each appliance can be combined together in the central manager. So, for example, if you have 20 devices which are managed by 8 SPPs and each one faces, say, 10 subnets, you can add 20 times 10 subnets into the central manager, and they will be configured on each device. And it does not matter because those devices will face only their own unique subnets. Next, traffic statistics and system recommended thresholds are unique to each 40 DDoS appliance. That's because each appliance faces its own specific traffic, and therefore, these two traffic statistics and system recommended thresholds are unique to each 40 DDoS appliance. Now, 40 DDoS CM GUI highlights a red appliance selection drop down button if that page is unique to an appliance management. And you can see an example here. Next key concept to understand is that when you have common page where the policy will be applied to all devices, you will see a save to all button, and that will mean that the changes you are doing will apply to all devices. But if it's a device specific change, you will see save to device and a device ID that you have given. Next concept is if common parameters are modified locally on an appliance, the 40D CM will indicate that the appliance is no longer in sync with the others. And therefore, you will have to take corrective action to override the changes with the common configuration. The next key concept with Central Manager is that firmware can be stored in Central Manager and manual firmware upgrades can be applied to devices from the Central. Now, let's have a look at what are the high level relevant menus on the 40D DOS CM user interface, which is not very different from the device user interface. So, on the 40D DOS CM, you will see two new menu groups. One is called the CM dashboard, the other is centralized management. In the CM dashboard, you will see information such as system information, license information, 40 DDoS details, last 1 hour drops, recent event logs, and these are relevant to the CM itself. Next, you have the centralized management menu, and this allows you to manage the CM itself. So, for example, managing different 40 DDoSes, sync now operation, retrieve config, backup and restore config for the CM, and so on. And some of these items are related to the central manager's operation. For example, when you take the daily config backup, that would take the backup of the configuration of the central manager itself. The feature for update devices is also here. Next, you have the 40 view, and this allows you to get a combined threat map across all devices and combined data analytics across all devices. And remember that all devices share the same SPPs. To centrally upgrade or downgrade devices, the first step is to build firmware repository. So you get the latest images from Fortinet.com and corresponding to the models you have, and then you build your repository. And next, to update centrally, choose the device devices of the same kind, same models, and then you can apply the images that you want to select and upgrade or downgrade using a single step. You can find more information about FortiDDoS and the Central Manager on www.fortinet.com. Thank you for joining me in this presentation about FortiDDoS. Thank you very much.